Welcome to Conversations Live. For more than a decade, we've brought you the best in books, entertainment, and current events. When the movers and shakers of the world have something to say to you, they say it to us first. Now, here's your host, Cyrus Webb.
And welcome back, everyone, to Conversations Live. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. Glad you all could join us once again, whether you're tuning in on the radio dial in Mississippi at WYAD 94.1 FM. We're glad you all could join us once again. Also, those tuning in through our online affiliates around the world, we're glad to have all of you with us as well. You know, I think all of us know the importance of learning from history, and our next guest has definitely been able to not only share her own love of history with the world, but been able to see an amazing response, especially around young people. She's award-winning children's book author and speaker, Jenny L. Cote. She's making her first appearance on our program. We're going to talk to her not only about her own love of history, but also what it's been like for her to share the importance of learning history, and also, of course, what she's been able to appreciate about it as well. Her newest book is called The Voice, the Revolution, and the Key. We'll tell you at the end of our segment how you can stay connected with Jenny, as well as how you can get the brand new book. But Jenny, hello to you, and welcome to the program.
Hi, Cyrus. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be with you.
Well, look, the pleasure's definitely all mine. You know, and I think, talking about history, I think especially in the times that we're living in today, Jenny, it's so funny. History was one of my favorite topics in school, and it continues to be one of those things that I look forward to being able to read and to learn from and appreciate. You know, what I was able to glean from you when I was prepping for the segment, that you feel the same way. What has it been like for you, Jenny, to not only to share your own love and appreciation for history, but also to share the importance of it too?
Well, I am with you. History was always been my favorite because as a child, I grew up in Virginia in the Yorktown, Williamsburg, Jamestown area, so in the heartbed of where our country got started. And my parents took me to every museum, every trip. I don't care how dinky the little museum was. We went. And so I gained an appreciation for learning at an early age, and that's carried through all my life. And I have a passion for God and history and young people. And so that all kind of came together for me to start writing books in a way to make history fun and engaging for kids. And to see the response over time has just blessed me beyond measure. This novel that is just out is my seventh. I have 6 previous to that, and they're biblical titles, and it's the same character team of talking animals that go through time. They meet on the way to Noah's Ark, and they foil a plot by a stowaway who's out to kill Noah and wipe out the human race. And so they're chosen to save the day throughout time, and it goes all the way up through Christianity to the fall of Rome, to quote-unquote current day, to the founding of our country, the Revolution, and then we're going to go up to C.S. Lewis in World War II. So my animals are tour guides through history, if you will, to explain and commentate and help kids and adults as well learn. And a big response that children give me all the time is, I never knew that. I can't wait to go learn more. And that's exactly the point, is to send them to go learn more.
And I think that is one of the big things about what you've been able to do, Jenny. And I think, we as adults now can also appreciate the importance of books like this. Has that surprised you about the adult audience for your work? Even though, as you said, it's primarily written for children to help them as far as navigate through history. What has it been like for you to see the way that adults are appreciating your work too?
It's been a delightful surprise, Cyrus, because they're geared to 8 to 12-year-olds. Now, these books are 450 to 650 pages long, so they are not small little books. And the oldest reader I have on record, believe it or not, is a 95-year-old great-grandmother up in Delaware. A reader sent me a picture that they introduced my books to her, and she can't put them down, and it's such a blessing to see that. C.S. Lewis once wrote that a children's novel that does not entertain adults is not a good children's novel. And so that gives me encouragement that adults are also learning so much about history. Dear friend of mine, Ray, who works at St. John's Church in Richmond, where Patrick Henry gave his Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death speech, he's 73. And he read this current book, and he said, Jenny, I felt like a 10-year-old kid. He said, I have studied Patrick Henry my entire life, but he has never come to life for me like this before, or George Washington or Ben Franklin. So it's fun to see adults be kids as well and enjoy these books.
Right. Could you have imagined when you started this journey with this series, as you said, this being seventh one, Jenny, could you have imagined that they would have the impact that they have had?
No. And again, I have to pinch myself that I get to do, that I'm privileged to do what I do. And, I just pray it just keeps going. And the books, they've soared around the world. I hear from readers in Australia, New Zealand, and France, and Canada, and Ecuador, and it's just in Africa. And I am humbled and just stunned. And I know I'm just a little dictation girl. I'm not that good, I take my marching orders from the author with a capital A.
Right. Well, and with that being said, I think the other interesting thing is, and I should let our audience know this, Jenny, that I actually found out about you, and this segment was able to be booked because of a recent op-ed that you did because of the current events that were going on in this country, especially in Charlottesville, Virginia. I also host a news program here in Mississippi, so of course that was a part of the news headlines, especially before all the tragedies have been taking place with Hurricane Harvey. I want to talk about not only, of course, what's happened with history, but also the impact that some, are able to be affected of when it comes to history. I mentioned earlier my love of history and learning, and being from Mississippi, of course, I've heard so many bad things about my state, and about people in my state that I have not necessarily seen in my 42 years of living here. But we all know that there have been dark chapters of our country. Talk to us about the balancing act, because one thing, when I read your op-ed, and I got a chance to read it, and I encourage any of our audience to read it as well, talk to us about the importance of acknowledging it, but also using that as a teaching tool.
Well, I tell you, you are absolutely right that there is good, bad, and ugly in history, and the only way to stay balanced and to get any use from history is to know every detail of the good, the bad, the ugly. We have to study all of it, not just the parts we like, all of it, because we can't learn from it otherwise. And that's something that I do in my books, and I show that, man hasn't changed across time. The clothes we wear, what we drive, how we communicate does, but the heart of man is the same throughout history. We're all fallen, we're all broken. And you know what? If you and I both look in the mirror, we're going to see a lot of good, bad, and ugly. And, we don't like to think about the bad stuff we've done. But, and I'm certainly no paragon of virtue. I can't, because I'm broken and fallen too. But I will say this. Isn't it the painful things that you've done and the mistakes you've made that you've learned the most from? To say, I'm not going to ever do that again. And that, to me, is how we teach history to all of us, kids and adults alike. We need to look at all of it. We need to understand how it has affected our fellow man, our fellow citizens. We need to respect each other and talk honestly about how we feel about this. But to me, it's like, I don't know why we are afraid to do that.
Yeah. And that's one of the points that you made in the op-ed. And I think it's an important one for us to remember. I think just like with a book, and I thought about this, and I was actually, when I was telling someone you were coming on the program, Jenny, I used this illustration. I told them, if you got to a part of any book that you didn't like, you wouldn't tear those pages out and destroy the book. Because of that, you would be able to use it in balance with the rest of it. We look at a book like the Bible, that has, some of course, some amazing, places where, the people of God were able to do great things, but also places that they, that they did not do so well, but we were able to learn from that. And I thought about that, too, with your segment, because I think so many times, as you said, I think in a rush to want to protect maybe some, we do rush and we make mistakes that we don't think about what the import of it would be. What has it been like for you to see the response to the op-ed, Jenny?
Oh, it's been staggering to see that it touched a chord, and it even led to the honor of me being on Fox and Friends last week as a result to talk about it, and I was really kind of blown away by that. And, a lot of these words weren't mine. I shared the quote that, those who don't remember their history are doomed to repeat it. Well, that's certainly not original to me, and it's been said so many times. But so I see this as a teaching moment in our country. And, I talk to kids all the time And I've talked to a lot of people about the op-ed, and as you can imagine, I've received good, bad, and ugly from the op-ed.
Sure.
But I've asked kids about this. I said, what would happen to us if we lose our history as Americans? And they said, we lose our future. And I said, and whose responsibility is it to keep telling the next generation of history, our stories? And they said, it's ours. And so, these kids, and I got to be one-on-one with them this summer. I partnered with the National Park Service to do Epic Patriot Camp. I did it at Cowpens in Kings Mountain this summer. And it's a time to really unpack history with these kids and show them how hard it was and the mistakes we've made. And, the kids, they walked away and they said, I never knew this. I can't wait to go study more. So it's hard and it's uncomfortable. But, when we go into it, the key is respect and consideration as we discuss things, even when we're on opposite points of view. And that's what we're missing, I think, in our country today, is how we communicate it.
Exactly. And I think because we always learn, and I think, Jenny, you would agree on this, we learn when we are able to discuss things, and maybe someone may have a different vantage point, a different perspective of something, and look at things in a way that we had not even thought of, right?
Absolutely. I had a great conversation. In fact, this week, dear friend of mine, Kenneth, I've actually got another op-ed coming out, and I kind of highlight Kenneth, our conversation. He immigrated from Jamaica 20 years ago, and we had a conversation about this very thing, and I said, Kenneth, I want to know what you think about all of this. He has a 5-year-old son, David, and I said, do you think we need to remove, statues and monuments and things? And he said, absolutely not. He said, I want to be able to take my son David and to show him, look, this is what happened in America long ago, and then take him to another point that's a better point and say, and look at what we did. Look how far we've come. Look how we have been able to rise to where the highest office in the land, an African American. How amazing is that?
Right.
And so, but he said, but it is hard. He says, but America has been so good to me, and the things that I have been able to do here that I could never do in Jamaica. And he says, and I bless all of the history. And so, I've talked with many friends over the last few weeks on both sides of the aisle, and that's how I grow and I learn and I understand their perspective.
Yeah, and I think that's it, too. I think also what happens, and I think our audience will appreciate this both here in Mississippi, Jenny, as well as our online audience and in other places, that I think sometimes we all become so emotional about something that we feel so strongly about. But I think so many times we all know the danger, though, of acting on emotion, and instead of actually hearing what's going on and trying to appreciate where someone else is coming from. And I think that is the thing that can be saddening to me, that we're not listening enough. And we're talking over someone instead of actually talking to them and listening to them. And I think that is the big thing. I also think that books like yours, and I think this is the great thing about fiction, is that you're able to share, even with children, as you have your fictionalized characters, kind of taking this journey with us in history, you're able to share, what we all can learn about these times. Is that also part of your hope, Jenny, that you would not only teach kids especially about history, but also show them the appreciation of learning from that history?
Oh, yes, and absolutely. And one of the things that I stressed in this book, I show the Founding Fathers as children because the angle I took was, before they were Founding Fathers, they were founding children. And I said, wouldn't it be cool for kids to be able to see the founders starting their journey as kids, just like they are today, to find their place in history and their calling. And one thing that was so unique about the generation of our Founding Fathers was they studied history, not like, we do. They studied ancient Rome, Greece, empires across time. They studied mankind, and so when it came time to formulate, well, how is our country going to run, they looked at the things that were mistakes in history, and they said, well, we're not going to do that, okay? So that is a key message that comes through this is, okay, kids, readers, look at what happened. look at where these founding fathers made mistakes. Because let me tell you what, I mean, Patrick Henry, he's my hero, but he had flaws, and I showed how he failed repeatedly, but then he learned from it. And so, and to be very honest with kids, to say, you know what, you're going to mess up too, and you're not always going to make the right decision, but learn from it and do the next right thing for your part of history. And you know, one thing that you said about not listening, I want to add this other quote, this anonymous quote. I love this. It said, history repeats itself because no one was listening the first time. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what's happening. We're not listening to each other.
Right. And I think, too, and I want to make sure our audience knows this, Jenny, I'm definitely not saying that, you know, there are not points that people are making that are valid points. But I do think, again, you know, we all have heard that saying, you know, throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I think so many times, you know, we, again, make decisions out of haste instead of, again, being able to kind of talk about these things, because otherwise, where's the lesson in that at all? If you just go around and acting instead of actually explaining or having a discussion, I mean, what are you supposed to learn from that? And I think that is the big thing for sure. So, you know, you mentioned earlier, of course, you know, our understanding and appreciating for you, Jenny, this is a God-given gift that you have been able to give. Have you thought about starting something also for adults, or are you comfortable enough with just writing for children and knowing that adults will appreciate it as well?
Oh, listen, these books are for adults. And, you know, my first book was a book for adults. It was a devotional book, so nothing like this. But these books are so solidly researched, and as I watch adults learn from them, I think they're going to be sufficient. And by the way, I researched this current work 10 years.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, I layer, and I'm reading about 200 books on the Revolution to write this trilogy. There's going to be 3 in the Revolution. But, you know, I exhaust all of my resources to make sure I get the historical facts, everything we can possibly know. And then I layer plausible fiction. Okay, when I bring characters to life, well, it has to be plausible to their character, to their time. And then the fantasy part that I weave in with my animals, I look for those moments in history where we either don't know how something happened or why it happened, and then that's where they're inserted, and that kind of makes it fun. So I don't alter what happened.
Sure.
And, you know, so far since half my readers are adults, I think I'm going to be good to stick with how I'm writing.
We definitely want to encourage our audience to make sure that they have been able to visit our friends at Amazon.com and be able to pick up their own copy of the book, Jenny. And I really appreciate you taking the time. I know that you have been crazy busy, so we definitely appreciate you being able to join us today to be able to not only, of course, to talk about the new book, but also, of course, your own love of history and what we can learn from history as well. Again, the new book is called The Voice, the Revolution, and the Key. It's available through our friends at Amazon.com, or you can go to your favorite bookstore. If they don't have it, they'd be more than happy to order it for you. And, Jenny, let our audience know, how can they stay connected with you as well?
Well, my website is epicordoroftheseven.net, and that's spelled out 7, and they can order signed copies there and just see more background. My op-ed is there and some other things, and I hope they will stay in touch. And I love Jackson, Mississippi. I go to schools, and I do workshops on creative writing to schools and homeschool groups, and I've been to Jackson several times, and I love it. And so, hey, out there in Mississippi. And I so appreciate all that you do. I'm honored to be on your program, and I hope we can chat frequently, Cyrus. That would be a blessing.
Well, look, I look forward to that. I look forward to staying connected with you, Jenny. And congratulations again to you, not only on the op-ed and the success of that, but also the new book. And looking forward to that in the next conversation with you.
Thank you. You keep up the good work out there, Cyrus.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And we thank your audience for tuning in to another great segment of Conversations Live. If you all came in late, you missed part of the conversation with Jenny, don't worry. Thanks to our online friends, you all can catch the replay right after we go off the air. The link is already available through our social media site. So head over to Facebook.com/Cyrus Webb or go over to Twitter.com/Cyrus Webb. If you click on the link there, you can listen to the show completely for free and share with your friend from there too. Until next time, I'm your host, Cyrus Webb, saying as always, enjoy your day, enjoy your life, enjoy your world. Make sure you take out time to enjoy some good music as well as a great book. Thank you all for choosing Conversations Live today. You all make it a great one.